This meeting
Welcome.
is being recorded.
Yes, I'm Alfred Lambremont Weber, and I'm here with Spirit Warrior, who is the Attorney General of the Alliance of Indigenous Nations. And we're here addressing the issue of whether the United States, or more broadly, Turtle Island, North America, will break up into regions in the future. Over to you, Spirit Warrior.
Well, I'll just introduce myself. I am born in Canada. I have earned both a master's degree in history and modern European history and a law degree from a top law school in Canada in Toronto, and have spent the last 25 years, since about 1996, studying both cellular nutrition, which doctors who I had built many houses for, I was a contractor for 40 years, Philadelphia being a very large center for medical experts. I built hospitals for many doctors, and they really knew nothing, even till today, about nutrition. And so I started there, and then I began to ask questions about the human cells, and who could have developed these cells so perfectly, yet we have so much disease in the world. These cells were able to, our immune systems, to protect ourselves, to heal the body very rapidly. Who could have done this? And within about a year, Alfred, I was in the front row at the University of Pennsylvania when National Geographic announced in the Genographic Project that the ancient Sumerian texts of 6000 BC have the truth about who fashioned the first Eve and Adam. And then moved on back from Philadelphia, moved back to Toronto, and met several sovereign indigenous heritage chiefs. They're not part of a corporate structure. They are holding the ancient secrets. And boy, did I get an eye opener there. I learned that I was Métis, which should be a celebrated race of people. Métis people have half their genome or a part of their genome from the Eastern Hemisphere, Europe, and they have the other part of themselves, in my case, from the high Andes Mountains of Peru, which is Lake Titicaca, Chichen Itza, and the ancient secrets of alien contact. Now, I was trained in history to set aside my beliefs as a Catholic, let's say, in this example. I was at Catholic University, Villanova University. To set aside that, Alfred, and follow the evidence, which is where my law degree comes in, right? To follow the evidence where you go. And beings that are here on the planet will guide you as long as you continue to follow. And this is what has happened. So for the last 25 years, I've now been charged with being the watchdog. Attorney General is a term we use to get some correlation to American and Canadian comprehension. But I'm really the watchdog on the Grand Chiefs, on the treaty, members who are part of this international treaty now going around the world, and on a new financial system, which is backed by the Canadian resources. Canada is worth $700 trillion, which dwarfs Russia's 70 trillion, which they're using to fund the BRIC system. So it's moving very fast. It's very exciting, and lots of fun. So I hope in this interview to do those things, inform people, have fun, and challenge the misteachings that they've suffered. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So, what is it? What evidence have you come across that would bear on the issue of will Turtle Island, that is parts of North America, the United States, which has a constitution, and Canada, which is the second largest landmass, but is known as a very stable country, may break up into regions in our foreseeable future, in our time horizon. I was told this in January of 1977, when I joined the staff of the Center for the Study of Social Policy at Stanford Research Institute as a futurist, Willis Harman, the head of the center, took me aside and said, Alfred, in the future, the United States is going to break up into regions. And at that point, SRI's unit had a contract with the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, just a 50-year future study of the United States. And I knew that he was leaking to me a finding of the Central Intelligence Agency. And then on a separate track, I would, through intensive work with a whistleblower from the top secret DARPA CIA time travel program, know that starting in 1971, DARPA CIA had quantum access time travel technology, and that they were surveying the future and surveying the past as a matter of policy. They were pre-identifying future US presidents in 1971 and briefing them all, from George Bush Sr. through Joe Biden in 1971. They had briefed them, thereby mooting US elections and
planned presidencies.
Yes. And
they can do that, Alfred, because the United States became, or always was, a corporation. 1871, right. The U.S. Washington, D.C. Act instituted the second bankruptcy of the United States, which suspended the Constitution of 1789. And so they're a corporation. Their governing board can do as they please.
Exactly. And so I was leaked in 1977 that in the future, North America would break up into pieces. And then in 1981, a Washington Post reporter, Joel Garreau, published a book called The 9 Nations of North America. Yes. And the cover of his book, and the Washington Post being almost like an outlet of CIA, I figured that, oh, well, they briefed him too, because he had been, if I was briefed in 1977, Joel Garreau was briefed in 1977, and out popped his book in 1981, The 9 Nations of North America. And so I've written a trilogy now on this issue. One is called Time Screen, which covers this, going back to the 1890s and the novels of Ingersoll Lockwood, a member of the bar in the 1890s, where he wrote a book where the principal characters, they have people like Pence and Don and Barron, all the names of the Trump family, and the hotel in which the set is on the exact address of Trump Tower. And Don in this is called the name of the book is The Last President. So these are what I call implants of the chronography. So they set up the dissolution of the constitutional United States, and through Ingersoll Rand, this member of the bar of the United States, who was an agent of the chronography. You can read it in my book Time Screen, which is available on Amazon, or just go to universebooks.com and you could download it and get it on Gumroad, and you can get it for free there. You can just download the electronic copy and pay what you want and get it free. So with that and 2002 Diary, I've just been following all of this and showing how these are scripts of the chronography. And now I'm on the third book, which is called um, Will the United States Break Up into Regions? A Public Inquiry. It's a public inquiry. I stole
Yes.
that title, A Public Inquiry, from a pressing public issue here in Canada, a public inquiry. They wanted to know if the People's Republic of China was influencing public events in Canada. It was a public inquiry. And of course, the prime minister that the Chinese bought resisted a public inquiry. So I said, what a great title for a book, A Public Inquiry. So let's have a public inquiry as to whether North America will break up. And so that's what we're having. And so
Well,
this,
you've got to go ahead.
yeah. And so I'm asking you, there's all, we have Joel Garreau's book. We have the 2 volumes that I've written about. And it seems like Donald Trump is this, if Trump is elected in 2024, I put in statistics there. You already have in 2022, the Republican Party of Texas adopted a resolution, and there is now a bill introduced by the Republicans in the State Assembly of Texas calling for the secession of Texas from the Union. That is a bill and you have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene calling for a national divorce. And you have public opinion polls where 33% of Trump voters in Trump states say they'd be better off with their states at being separate republics. And so if Trump wins, where the latest poll this week came out, he's 10 points ahead of Biden for 2024. I mean, it seems that and he's coming on a platform of retribution. It looks like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that the United States will break up. So over to you, because you also have information that I know my chrononaut colleague edited a book called The Fatima Trilogy. And it's
Yes.
about multidimensional information which was channeled in about this time that may bear on this as well.
We have to focus on the title of the main plans document. It's called the British North America Act of 1867. It's the foundation, allegedly, of a constitution for Canada by royal proclamation. But they didn't call it the Canada Act. The Canada Act has been 3 or 4 of them. But this document in 1867 is actually regarding, right, North America, which was divided between the Virginia Company in Washington, D.C., which still exists, 1608, right, still exists there, and the corporation that's in occupying Ottawa, Canada, our alleged capital. And so this business of the Canadians on the one side of the border and the Americans on the side of the border is one divisive issue. It's a technique. And now what you're describing, Alfred, is the Second Civil War. The Civil War under Abraham Lincoln was not caused by slavery. Slavery was in 1863. The first cause was who's going to own the cotton industry coming out of Georgia. It's going to be the Southern Georgia, Southern, Confederates, or it's going to be the banks in New York. And Abraham Lincoln said, he's a lawyer. He said, I got General Lee in front of me and the bankers behind me. Between the two, the bankers are the worst. So it's the banks that are engineering this new civil war to, again, 700,000 male taxpayers died, were killed, murdered each other, whatever, in 1865. And so that began the second bankruptcy because the Americans could not pay the war debt from 1776, which they agreed to do in Paris in 1879. By joining the world of nation states from the Treaty of Westphalia in the 1600s, they agreed to be part of this international bankruptcy of admiralty law and go under the Vatican. That's a long story back before Magna Carta we'll get into. But so they agreed to be part of this because it gave them 70 years to pay this war debt, with all the massive death in 1776 during the wars. But there were a group there from the Virginia Company, led by George Washington, who were the land speculators of American North America. They didn't want the British in Montreal in 1774 under the Quebec Act. They didn't want King George anywhere on this land. The American boys, the old boys, they had their eye on North America for themselves in Virginia, and not the indigenous people, the original inhabitants of this continent. So it goes back to that kind of duplicitous thinking, giving them a constitution, which is really a contract to pay taxes to the foreign bank in downtown London. And so they couldn't do it in the 70 years to the Civil War. They couldn't do it. Then there was a second bankruptcy under FDR in 1933. In 1929, okay, that Lateran Treaty was signed between the Vatican and Mussolini's Italy. Italy did not recognize the Vatican Papal States for 70 years. Mussolini gave the Pope $70 million in 1929. That went right to Joseph Kennedy, who shorted the market, and the Archbishop of New York was the one who was the beneficiary. He bought up all the corporations on the stock market at 10 cents on the dollar. And then in 1933, the Canadian Prime Minister, a member of the Bar of England, of the Temple, of the Four Inns of Court in of Temple Bar in London, he was a member, Baldwin was his name, and he gave FDR the idea of let's enslave the people, we'll take their gold, only real currency, and silver for millennia, we'll take it all from them, and we'll enslave them under a birth bond contract that their mother will sign in order to let them work for us. And that was planned by Colonel House, Woodrow Wilson's right-hand man. And he bragged about this, that in the future, people will own nothing. They'll be under our servitude. They won't know anything. And they will begin to pay taxes against the U.S. Constitution. So that sets up the poverty of North America that we see today. That people can't defend themselves, that people can't even barely house themselves. In Toronto, 70% of income today is spent on housing. So then you need credit cards to buy your groceries and other things, gas, etc. It's all been planned out of London, going back to ancient times, right, to Magna Carta, certainly in 1213, a deal between the King of England and the Pope. But it goes back even further than that to the ancient times of the Garden of Eden, when the first Eve, who was constructed in 200,000 BC by a geneticist, she was met by two characters, one called Yahweh and one called Ha Nakash, which for thousands of years has been interpreted by the Vatican as the serpent. But recently it's been correctly redefined as the Shining One. And so when the Shining One offered Eve knowledge, and the patriarchal Yahweh offered her just to be a sperm bank, according to Aristotle, and slave to the male mindset, uh, Eve went with the Shining One. And Yahweh brought the banking cage from the Orion uh, planetary system, star system of the Orion belt, and brought that financial electronic slavery. And that's exactly where we are today. I hope it didn't go too far afield. But British North America Act, created in London. London came out of the ancient Venetian families that came out of ancient Mongolia. And Mongolia is the seat of power in the Chinese world. His name, the founder of China, and this is not well known today, is an individual named Fu Xi, Fu space Xi. And he's half serpentine, and his mate is Nu Hua, Nu space Gua. Just Google it. You can see the two of them there. They are the founders of Chinese culture and civilization after the flood. The flood's either 12,000 BC or it's 6,000 BC, or there were two floods. There may have been a flood in 30,000 BC. So we've got this Chinese thing going on, these two serpentine beings. But in ancient Egypt, you've also got Isis and Osiris. And they're figured the same. The lower half is serpentine. And then there's the head of the father of all gods of Greece, which is Zeus, who's also half serpentine. So that sets up the ancient plan from 200,000 BC, when Eve and Adam were co-created by this woman. Now, this, Alfred, goes to when I was at the University of Pennsylvania in 2006, when National Geographic brought Spencer Wells. He's Stanford, Harvard, Oxford trained, one of the top geneticists in the world, to take saliva tests all over the world that all went back to one woman. That's what he announced in the Museum of Archaeology of UPenn. I was in about the 8th row, and it didn't go back up the tree to an 8. It stops in 200,000, as if something had intervened. And so he said it goes back to one woman, but it's not Eve. So I put my hand up on the 8th row and I said, hey, Spencer, kind of sounds like Eve. So he would admit that it was a mitochondrial Eve. And so we could start our history from there and this plan, because, as I said, in the Garden of Eden, these two characters who came from planet X, called Nibiru, they were, one's name is Enki, the Shining One, and his half brother Enlil, who has had many names in history, but once you go with their epithets, you can follow their presentation of themselves. So it started then when Eve took off from Yahweh, disobeyed God, and went with Enki. And Enki gave her a considerable knowledge. But what Enki wanted really was great sex. And so we can go into the ancient history of the Sumerian texts from 6,000 BC. And from that, in Sumer, in ancient Iraq, you have to compare that to the story then later told in Egypt and in 2800 BC. And then you can move into Jerusalem, which is an outpost of the pharaohs, and the ancient Greeks in Athens, and then back to Jerusalem for the royal wedding at Cana, which is in the book of John only. That history versus what happened in China with Fuxi. And so that's where my research went, studying those two different civilizations which have this character in China named Fuxi, Xi, and this character in ancient Greece called Jesus Christos. That is a Greek royal title. I have a Greek degree from Villanova. One of my two majors was I double majored history and classics. And Fuxi, it's Fuxi. Jesus Christos, his symbols are X, XI, S. In Greek, X is hard. Christ. S is ST later on. It's complicated. Christ. But in ancient Phoenician, the X has the English Z sound, the American Z. Zeus. And so now you've got this character, Enki, who is running around the Mediterranean, and he's running around ancient China in the city of Xian, two centers of power, versus his half brother, who is running the Judeo Christian creature of Constantine the Great in 325 AD, and he's running the Muslim founding in the 6th century, which may have been a Jesuit plot. I don't know much about that. I stay away from Muslim history. Too dangerous. But all these images of God or Allah, etc., are being manipulated. So I followed all that, being a Catholic man, etc., for about 10 years, and then collaborated into books that I would have. I wrote the books, Alfred, so that they would be not necessarily easy to read. They were fence posts that I was pounding into the ground in ancient China, in ancient Cairo, in ancient Ukraine, right? These secrets are in north of Kiev. They're in a cave. If Iraq was 6,000 BC, then earlier than that now in Ukraine, there are caves that are 20,000 BC. And now we're going back to that flood that is 30,000 BC. So that's quite an introduction. And this is what I've done. And then you can go to Peru and we can go through that of where these gentlemen went. We'll call them gentlemen for now. These beings that came from planet X. Now, like you, I was a contractor in Philadelphia. I stopped being a lawyer. In the time of Ben Johnson, the great sprinter, Canadian sprinter who was caught at the Seoul Olympics, I was working as a manager of athletes and lawyer in Ottawa. It was my job as the manager of athlete services to monitor what was going on. We knew that Ben Johnson was on steroids. I suspected heavily he was going to be caught between 84 in LA and 88 in Seoul, Korea. And sure enough, he was using a masking serum that the Bulgarian weightlifters were using. And they were caught on the 3rd day because the masking serum had been broken by the international scientists. So he knew he was a sitting duck. So they loaded him up to the eyeballs for that final to finally beat those bastard Americans and their great Carl Lewis. And so when you see the photograph, Ben Johnson is one whole body length out of the blocks. I'm an Olympian, so I can notice these things. Lewis knew he couldn't catch a body length on Ben Johnson. Half a body length, maybe. The race was over, and he smashed the world record. So he used, steroids, and he was later caught, etc. So I had quit my job before that, so the audience can know that it's a matter of integrity, Alfred. You as a lawyer, me as a lawyer, we swore an oath to our clients to get to the truth, no matter what the Catholic Church, and I believed in God or Pope or whatever, and get to the truth. So that's the tools I use to then set up this whole scenario of what is going on. Now, the ancient Iraqi texts talk about this planet X. It's outside Pluto. Well, lo and behold, the astronomers at Caltech, Dan Brown, I can't remember his first name, but Brown and Batygin, the Russian mathematician, have now proven that planet X exists outside of Pluto. They're building a telescope apparently to see this thing. And in the ancient texts, planet X hit the Earth when it used to be outside of Mars. There's something called Bode's Law, Bodes. Bode's Law dictate mathematically there has to be Mercury, Venus, nothing where Earth is. The next planet mathematically is Mars, then a mysterious planet that exploded, then Jupiter. Well, the ancient texts show that planet X hit the planet outside of Mars, where the asteroid belt is, and knocked it inside of Mars, where the Earth now is and can't be mathematically, where we wobble on a very unstable 23.5 degree, rotation. And so here we go. And when they hit us, they needed gold to repair their atmosphere. Their planet goes way out to the Sirius star system through stargates, I believe, and they live under the planet. They tunnel under, and the atmosphere and volcanoes keep them warm. Well, that atmosphere was damaged, so they needed gold. So they sent Jason and the Argonauts, right? That's the ancient Greek story, to the Iraq Tigris Euphrates, where they found the gold they needed. And they began sending beings here to mine the gold of Iraq, and then into the mountains of South Africa, and into the mountains of Peru. Now that's a provable history. They know they have them there. They know King Solomon's boats were found in Brazil, and they came from the Red Sea. It's marked on a stone, carved in stone. So we know that the people who was ever in charge of Jerusalem, Cairo, ancient Egypt, knew where the gold was, Peru and South Africa. But because the mining was so hard, they couldn't. These were partly amphibian beings, as I said. Fuxi and XXIS, Zeus, were partly amphibian. Osiris was partly amphibian. Isis was partly amphibian. Whatever that means, they couldn't mine the gold fast enough in the mountains, so they created a little hominid in Ethiopia, Homo sapien. And that's where we started in 200,000 BCE. Now proven by DNA. As lawyers, we know you get death row if the DNA is not on the smoking gun. This has all been proven now, and just not compiled in an organized fashion for somebody in Toledo, Ohio. Nothing wrong with Toledo, Ohio, but you're leading your own life. But SRI employee like yourself at Stanford, etc., or Harvard, or MIT, or Oxford, now has an interest in this, and it's moving very quickly. Go ahead, back to you.
Yeah.
Let's take a break.
Right. So where does this leave us with evidence bearing on the breakup of North America in the near future into separate regions?
You're now into prophecy. So I've tried to describe this ancient plan to get the gold, get the little hominids to bring the gold. Queen of Sheba brought King Solomon a whole cartloads of gold that came from South Africa. So once they started this whole flow into the Vatican, into Rome, you've got the ancient Mongolians who moved into Venice, then into London to create a financial system. Now that's Osiris on one side, or his name is Enlil, the military commander of this gold gathering, and Enki, who was Enki or Enoch, his name is actually two initials, K. He's known as the Son of Man. Like, I'm a Catholic. Like, hello, I know that term. It's every Sunday, but no one ever explains who this character is. He wasn't born in Jerusalem. He was born. Jerusalem means she will come there dressed as a bride. The original name of Jerusalem is Ariel, Ariel, the Little Mermaid story. So Walt Disney Studios knew what was going on with this royal wedding in in Jerusalem. Now that's on one side of the male story. But in there is the woman Isis, the goddess of Egypt. Back in the day, her name was Ninmah. And Ninmah came to the earth. She was the greatest biologist they had. The men couldn't figure out how to get this ape thing to become a miner, a mineral miner in Ethiopia. So they brought Ninmah from planet X, and en route she carved the face on Mars as an ancient god. That's a complicated story. One of their kings died there, and so she does the monument, comes to Ethiopia, creates Homo sapien. Isis begins to suspect that what these her two half brothers are up to, Enlil and Enki, is a plan to create. Because Enlil's military, and Enki's more of a irrigation guy, a coppersmith, a mineral guy, scientist, and what they need is an AI soldier to continue to fight the battle that's occurring in the Orion star system. And Isis begins to suspect, the creatrix of human beings, that the plan is once they get the AI soldier, which China apparently has, they're going to just, the men are just going to, the patriarch is just going to kill the rest of the fodder. So Isis, when you talk about prophecy that you were experiencing in 1977, a woman appeared at Fatima, Portugal, in May 13 of 1917. And she appeared 6 more times. On her 5th trip, September 13, the children were being smacked around by their parents, right? You little liars. And they asked the woman who's appearing, no evidence it's Virgin Mary, would they give her a sign, give the crowd a sign on October 13. And it was announced at high noon on October 13, I will give you the miracle of the sun. And a silver disc went over the sun's sphere, and colors began to spin out like a pinwheel from the sun. Then the spaceship came toward the earth, dried everybody. It's 70,000 people were there. The New York Times was there. It's all reported. And they dried it immediately. And then she gave the prediction to the children of the 3 secrets of Fatima. Now, what she did, Alfred, is in a third, Barbara Marciniak, who channels the Pleiadian star system, I was shocked when she said, this is a third dimension, a free will dimension. It's hard lessons are learned here, but still it's free will. How could this woman appear and predict the course of 20th century Europe? That's my master's degree, Nazi, German history, etc., and events that led to that atrocity, murdering 100 million people for financial benefit of German and American corporations. That's the simple truth, easily proved. So who is this woman? She said in October 13, within a few weeks, you'll have the Russian Communist Revolution, which was in November 11th, November 9th of 1917, just a couple of weeks later. It will last for 70 years. You'll have a Second World War, and the Northern Lights will be seen from the convent of the seer Lucy. And she was in Spain at the time, cloistered into a nunnery, to a convent, and she saw the Northern Lights from her window where she was, all as predicted. Then my Pope will come. 70 years from then, 1987, my Pope will come and will consecrate the world to me. But he will suffer. He will be shot. John Paul II, when he was shot by the assassin, was recovering. Great Marianist. And he then, when he's recovering, Alfred, he calls for the writings of Fatima. Never dawned on him before. And he realizes, holy crap, it's me. But she said, if he doesn't consecrate the world to me, communism from 1917, the Iron Curtain will come down, but communism will go underground. And where communism went underground, of course, is into George Bush Sr. and Mao's plan from Skull and Bones in Yale University to put Mao into power in 1949 and erase the ancient history of Fuxi and Nu Hua, who come from Planet X. So here we have it 100%. Now, the Francis Bacon Society, I don't know much about them, but I know they came here in around 1600, 1700, Bacon being apparently the illegitimate son of Elizabeth I, whatever the hell went on. The Bacon Society has been in America behind the scenes. Then there's the Masons running around the East Coast, etc. This is all mysterious groups. You'll never get behind the veils of the Skull and Bones. It doesn't matter because this subterfuge, all right, of America, of North America, South America. North America is the Garden of Eden. It's fully protected. It's very wealthy, and it's just fine where it is. The Europeans had to get control, and they've done so, as you said, through the last 7 or so presidents being controlled by corporations that are in small downtown London, England. The Golden Mile, which came out of Venice, which before that came out of Mongolia, the Khazarian bankers who loved to control people by currency. So there's the prediction of Fatima, predicting the actual either the breakup of North America, the British North America Act, and the Virginia Company of 1608, Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen, and Maryland, Queen Mary, Maryland, that area, still owned by the corporations. They're either going to succeed, Alfred, or the indigenous people of North America and South America are going to rise up and claim their rights to their own resources. And that's exactly where we are today.
That is brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant. And you're the first person that I've known in a long while who made the correct reference to Mao Zedong and Skull and Bones. And I say that as an old Yaley, my family being responsible for the, according to my mother, were involved in the establishment of the Yale Divinity School. So at least I come from the light part of Yale. Skull and Bones at Yale was actually not founded in 1832. It was founded in 1776 as the second chapter of the Bavarian Illuminati, the first chapter being under the Rothschilds. And yeah, and Mao Zedong was on the surface an intern at Yale in China Hospital, but that was just the surface. So there we go. So you and I have many realms in that we've traversed in common.
What happened? I was asking about your marriages because I was married to a staunch Catholic. We're Irish Catholic. But John Paul II said in the Catechism of '93, no murder, no divorce. And yet here's my wife was divorcing me with the help of the church, calling me mentally ill for not feeding the kids any more white sugar, even though Harvard in 2015 found that, announced anyway that white sugar, refined sugar, is a neurotoxin. And when I got off of it, Albert, I have a near photographic memory going into law school, but on a very bad diet law school, Northern Toronto slum I was in, I didn't eat well. and I lost that memory. I got off of refined sugar and took probiotics when I was 40 years old, 1995, and the photographic memory came back. And now I'm gobbling down, a book every 3 days, and it's getting faster and more intricate in it as I'm following, as I agree to follow this story of Fatima, which I was told was Virgin Mary. Now, let's set the characters for your book. Let's set the characters of ancient Iraq. There were four gods and gods, two goddesses and two gods. The prairie of Sion, Dan Brown's book, Da Vinci Code. Da Vinci knew this, but Da Vinci knew this from earlier artists. He didn't figure that out in his head. He was part of a group coming out of the 1300s. That's complicated. But Sion, this Prairie of Sion in the great book, Dan Brown's book, which his wife figured out, by the way, terrific researcher, Set, Isis, Osiris, and Nephthys. They were married. Osiris was the concubine, so Isis was the concubine of Osiris, and Set Enoch, Enki, Set Enki was the spouse of Nephthys. Now go back to ancient Iraq. You've got Enki married to a woman named Damkina, and you've got Isis there, whose name is Ninmah, mother Ninmah, and then you've got Osiris from Egypt, and the older text it's Enlil. So these four go on from Sumer in Iraq. They go on to downtown Cairo. Jerusalem's just an outpost. They can't find any proof of King Solomon or King David, and they've had since 1947 to find these characters. There's nothing there in Jerusalem. They were pharaohs, right? That's Ralph Ellis's work in England. Solomon of Sheba, and so he's got the pharaohs in one list, and he's got the Jewish kings in the other. And Alfred, they're exactly the same as you come through. So those are the four. Once you get that grid down, you can begin to see that in the ancient Ethiopian experiment to turn the ovum of an ape into a hominid, that Ninmah performed this and put the admixture, the in vitro fertilization, into her own womb, and she birthed the Adam. They brought Damkina from planet X, and she took the next admixture of the Eve and put that Ninmah put that into Damkina's womb. So Damkina she birthed the Eve and became the mother of mankind, who some call Virga Mara. Number 7, the queen of the seventh planet. So when the text started to come out, scientists said, well, you're all crazy. Earth is not they called the Earth the seventh planet, Alfred. Well, anybody knows it's, the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth. It's the third. Hello. They came in from planet X past Pluto, Uranus, Neptune, right? Down through the asteroid belt, which is the Pacific Ocean, past Mars, which was destroyed in the Great Collision, onto the wobbling Earth to create this new race of people called Homo sapien. So Damkina becomes Virgin Mary, and she's already married to Enki, who becomes known as Jesus Christos. That's a Greek royal title, Alfred. That's not his name. His name is Enki, the Son of Man, the Shining One. And when you see Jesus Christ, Jesus Christos, folks, in Greek royal title, he did what? He shone on the mountainside and told the disciples, shh, keep this quiet for now. It's the same gentleman. It's a complicated history as you move from ancient Iraq into Cairo, right? Then there was a fight there because Osiris and Leo raped Damkina. He raped Enki's wife. So in their culture, Alfred, down come the pants, out come the knives, and they go after the penis. And Enki cut off Osiris's penis. Well, on a Friday, he killed Osiris, and on a Sunday, Isis resurrects Osiris, can't find the penis, and then does something odd. She leaves with the assassin and his wife, and they go to Jerusalem, and they establish themselves as Jesse, the father of King David, whose name is Pharaoh Juat, D-J-U-A-D-J-U-T, Juat, Susenes the second, and then Jesse, Enki, marries the daughter of David, like they do in the Anunnaki world. You marry your granddaughter, and then he becomes King Solomon and tells Osiris, Yahweh, you're not the only God in Israel. Isis, Damkina, is the creatrix of mankind, of male, female, Adam, and Eve. And with that, Asherah is her name. She's the woman of the tree, the woman of the DNA, and he kicks, right? Yahweh kicks Enki and Damkina and Isis out of Israel, and they end up in Greece. In Greece, there's a picture in a book called the Sirius Mystery from the star system Sirius, which nobody knew back then. There's a picture of Zeus with his fishtail, the little hominid, and this woman of the tree, which you know as Athena. Now, this is important for me because, holy crap, Alfred, I'm divorced over this. I'm still proceeding in my search. And on Easter Saturday, Holy Sabbato, not the Christian Sunday, Holy Sabbato, guess what happens on my front lawn in Toronto? Smoke comes to the tree to my mother, and there, when the smoke cleared, was a 6-foot statue of the painting of the woman of Fatima.
Oh,
Asherah is on Canadian soil in a Canadian maple tree. And I'm
oh,
going, what the hell is going on here?
oh,
2 months later, I find the painting of Fatima, and it's identical to this image in the tree. And
oh.
now I'm actually Alfred in a hair salon picking up my daughter when my ex-wife couldn't get there. So here I am, and I'm looking through Oprah's first appearance in The Color Purple, and she's playing Sophia, which is the code name for the Virgin Mary. It's the code name for Virgin.
Hi, Spirit Warrior.
Yeah, a phone call came in and blocked us off. So,
Oh,
so
I
this,
see.
but this is what happens when you're dedicated to following the image. When I got divorced, a psychic in Vermont told me my children are sequestered, millionaires bought them a home, which actually happened, and you've got work to do in the ancient texts. I said, I'm a contractor, ex-lawyer, right? Barely scraping by here. What are you talking about? But you keep going. Now I've got the image in the tree. And I'm sitting beside this woman, as I said, in this hair salon, reading about Sophia, Oprah's first role, and the Sophia mystery in downtown Kiev, Ukraine, at the Church of the Novgorod. And I'm going, what the hell's Oprah got to do with this? The lady beside me goes, what are you oohing and ahhing over? Well, I'm researching Oprah and Sophia and Moses. Alfred, she says to me, then you want the woman of the tree. And I went, what? And I ran to my truck and got her the image from my front lawn in Toronto, the 6-foot statue from Fatima painting of 1929. They're identical. And she goes, yes, that's an Asherah. I said, who are you? Dr. Gail Palhouse of Villanova University, where I ran the Olympics and have my master's degree from. I'm a doctor of theology, an expert in Asherah, and that's an Asherah. Go to the Oxford Companion in the library, the reference dictionary, reference area, get the Oxford Companion out and look up Asherah. This nameless, faceless person in this hair salon happens to be this expert. And this is what went on. The point is, the key lies with King Solomon, the wisest king of all time, who was kicked out of Israel for bringing in the Egyptian image of the woman scientist from Planet X who fashioned the first Eve and fashioned the first Adam. That event happened for me Easter Saturday, 97. Fast forward 21 years to 1918, my partner takes me to her sister's home in Tel Aviv in October of 2018, and the sister says to me, oh, Glenn, there's an Asherah exhibit now this morning opening up in the National Museum of Jerusalem. And the statuette of this, about this high, it's about this high, of Asherah, the woman of the tree, is 6,000 BC, the exact time, Alfred, of the Sumerian texts, and when the civilization sprang up out of nowhere under the guidance of Asherah. I can't make any more of this up. I was suspended as a lawyer for writing about UFOs in my book 4 and 5. And now I've written back to the Law Society. They said book 4, the Black Madonna, right? It was the Black Madonna who created the first Adam. She got married at the wedding at Cana. That wedding, that royal wedding, because she married Jesus Christos Enki. For that, Osiris and Enlil said, you little whore, she used to be the concubine of Enlil, right? You prostitute, Mary the Magdalene. That's not her name. That's her Greek royal title. John the Baptist, Jesus the Son of Man, and Mary those are Greek royal titles from Sumer, from Planet X, now proven to exist outside Pluto. The Knights Templar found that genealogy when the Cathars, the first genocide of the Vatican, if you don't count what happened before Charlemagne, well, let's go through that. So Jesse the serpent, he's known to be serpentine, whatever the hell that means. He's the father of David, a strapping SOB, right, according to Michelangelo. He marries the daughter of David, and Solomon's known to be married to Pharaoh's daughter. So David is a Pharaoh, Susenes II. He marries the daughter, and the line of David, Enki, the line went into the Germany and joined up with the Sicambrian Franks, whose grandmother was raped by a serpentine being, Merovius, in the 3rd century. And now that line of the Sicambrian Franks joins with the line of David from Israel and becomes the Merovingian kings of Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code. And they are murdered, right? Dagobert was murdered by the mayor of the town. And so that's the term mayor is used in downtown London financial district, the mayor, Hernol. His name was Hernol. And this secret of the Hernol murder of Dagobert and throwing the power to Charlemagne, right, who fought the Austro-Hungarian Empire the whole way, right, the Holy Roman Empire versus the Austrian-Hungary Empire. This whole fight goes on for another 1,000 years until the First World War. But that whole marriage at Cana is kept in a painting called the Arnolfini portrait. I'm sitting on a beach in St. Thomas. My kids have just gone home, so I'm kind of sad. I'm having a few beers. And here I have Lawrence Gardner's book on the Magdalene. I open it up to this ancient painting, which has more secrets in it than any painting in history. Four scholars, one from UMass in United States, have all conceded on the BBC that they have no idea after 25 years of research what the hell the painting's about. Alfred, I'm on a beach in St. Thomas having a few beers, sad because my kids went home. I opened the painting up. I know what the painting is. It's
Mm.
the wedding of Cana. And
Wow.
in the middle of the painting is a convex mirror, like the
Mm.
Matrix. Now he's holding up her hand. They're clasped. The hands are clasped. The mirror is the focal point because it's in the middle. And I'm in a hair salon again, getting my hair cut, talking to everybody. And the hair cutter says, Glenn, I can see things in paintings nobody else sees. She
Mm.
goes home that night, she calls me and says, Glenn, look in the mirror. Their hands, because it's convex, Alfred, the hands are going forward toward the artist. They're
Mm.
facing. And beside the artist is a pregnant woman in blue. And she says they're putting something into the womb, the belly of that woman.
Mm.
Blue being the Virga Mara, Damkina, the first Adam and the first Eve, concocted by Enki, Ninma, and Enki's son Ningishita. The Father Enki, the Son Ningishita, and the Holy Spirit Ninma, which my Vatican stole the history from the Knights Templar. But the Templars get the secret back in around sometime after 1120, they get the secret back, put it in the show, and it's found there in 1880. Okay? And they bring the scrolls out, and the scholars in England of the Holy Blood, Holy Grail book line who they sued Da Vinci Code for stealing their knowledge. Henry Lincoln did his translation of this text, and he said it makes no sense. My mother, who was trained in a convent in Montreal after she was taken from her parents, she was trained in the ancient idiomatic French, and she says, Alfred, no, that's not what this. She said, who did this translation? Did they have an English French dictionary? Is that what they used? And the great Lynn Picknett of England, she wrote a book called Templar Revelation. I'm typing to her at the same time. And she says, Glenn, don't lecture me on French translation. Alfred, she says, I have the best French English dictionary you can buy. And my
Oh.
mother knows this is not what's being said. It's idiomatic French. It's called chevalier. Un chevalier is the highest male leader, interested in everybody's well-being. But a cheval de Dieu in French, the French people, is a son of a pope, interested in money and corruption. And she says, my mother says to me, the woman is saying, forget the paintings of Da Vinci, Poussin, and Teniers in the Middle Ages. There's no time left, Alfred. I'll get that son of a bitch myself at high noon. And on October 13, 70,000 people were there at 12 o'clock. My mother said, no, high noon, 1:30 in Portugal. And that's exactly when the sun broke and the UFO disc went over the. And then she gives the prediction that now is landing right here in North America as they attempt to break up our continent.
Whoa.
Whew! Whew!
Whoa. Whoa.
So without the woman of the tree statue in Toronto, Canada, which to me it's in a maple tree, Canadian people are known for one thing in the world, other than being very polite, right? They are a people of peace. Lester B. Pearson, right? We are a nation of peace. And we have the wealth now. We're worth $700 trillion. Putin has 70 trillion to try to run bricks around the world where they steal all they can steal to put in their booty, right? But he's only got 70 trillion. Canada has 700 trillion. to feed the Americans and to stave off this breaking up of the nine into the 9 regions.
Whoa.
Yes, but you've got to have the woman of the tree image from Fatima, which takes you back to King Solomon, back to the four gods of Iraq, ancient Iraq, in Sumer, and go by their epithets. Solomon was the Prince of Peace. He appeared in Lake Titicaca in Peru as the Prince of Peace. He's appearing in Mexico as Quetzalcoatl. He's appearing in China as Fuxi. The languages got scrambled at the Tower of Babel. That was on purpose by Enlil. So we couldn't communicate. But you watch their epithets. The Son of Man, the Black Madonna, the Black Osiris. And you can figure out what they always do, the same things, very similar things. But I think Isis, I think Damkina and Isis, who's Ninmah, Ninmah birthed the Eve, Damkina, Vergamara, birthed the Eve. And so those two characters, those women, have a role to play because in 2013, the world went into Aquarius from the age of Pisces. And in Pisces, the twin fish, one fish is Jesus Christos, and the other fish is Mary the Magdalene. Well, she got trounced, right? Until the Pope finally admitted in 93, right? They made up all the crap about being a whore. No evidence of being a whore. You're looking at the woman who fashioned the first Adam and fashioned the first Eve. And as we said earlier, when she fashioned Eve to follow the lunar cycle, the ancient Egyptian texts state that on the 14th day and the 28th day of her cycle, when she's hooked up to the moon's cycle, on those days she produces a very special monoatomic atom called Ormus, O-R-M-U-S. O-R being gold, Mu being the woman, S being a very difficult Greek symbol. The Ormus molecule created from the ingestion of what two substances? Seawater fish, because when the Anunnaki came to Tigris Euphrates, they found lots of gold in the water, but it's toxic to humans. So eat the seawater fish that has the gold, the 8 precious metals, gold, silver, platinum, rhodium, ruthenium. There's 8 of them that spin. They have a high spin to them. They're in the fish and they're in the wine because the grapevine goes down, Alfred, furthest in the ground. Banana trees, they have it on the surface. The potassium's on the surface, but the grapevine brought here from Planet X goes down deepest to get the 8 precious metals. And in a Science Journal magazine in 2005, they proved that the high spin Ormus molecule does 3 things. It repairs DNA damage, it raises the intelligence of stupid there, Fred Flintstone, you know who I'm talking about, and it opens the Stargate starting in 2013. Now, people are calling me because they know I'm the author of these book series called The Books of Isis, telling me, Alfred, these wild things in the bedroom that are going on. So I happened to contact a guy in New York who was doing a trampoline display at a health show. He was in Arizona making these trampolines. And I knew that Einstein said if you could move the body against gravity and let it come down safely, you would put the cells into what's called dry pack. You would put the female clitoris, which is the cosmic trigger of the skein glands, S-K-E-N-E, of the female that produces massive amounts of ejaculate. Only 10% of women can ejaculate because they haven't been taught. There's not many courses running around on female ejaculate. Most men think they're urinating all over the wall or the bed. No, there is no uric acid. This has been proven. No uric acid in the female ejaculate. So here's the real, when we go back to the Moses story and the fact that they were in the desert just outside of Cairo, actually, not too far outside in the marshes, and they didn't have any water. Miriam, his sister, who was promised an equal portion by Yahweh of the prophet's power, right? Miriam is filling these jars behind the screen in the Holy of Holies because she is nourishing. Who wants to drink ejaculate? Well, just a minute. It raises intelligence, it repairs DNA damage, and it opens the Stargate. And what were they doing with the golden calf when Moses came down? Having massive sexual orgies in order to open the Stargate on the 14th and 28th day. Now, since that time of Moses, what is that? 1200 BC, 1300 BC, women have been hands off the clitoris, right? No orgasm for you, and certainly no ejaculation. Well, when you line them up, Alfred, right? Every female is the same. The pancreas is in the same place, the kidneys in the same place, the thyroid gland in the neck controls body shape and sexual function until you misfeed her with beef, turkey, toxins. A human being is built to take in raw proteins, the fruits of the trees. It's not made to eat the animals when they've been cooked. So seawater fish can be eaten rare. When you cook an oil on the stove, you create a trans fat. The electrons split. That's just a basic function of chemistry. Don't be cooking in olive oil. You're splitting the electrons, creating trans fats, causing damage to your vein system. Apply the same logic to proteins. When they're in their raw state, their natural state, take an egg white, put an egg white in the blender, like Rocky did, right? And blend it up with water, no problem. Cook that egg white, Alfred, and the egg white will always float to the top. Our water-based systems cannot absorb cooked proteins. If you can poop them out fast enough, fine. But usually they go through the intestinal tract, through the porous intestine, and into the bloodstream where they're toxic, causing autoimmune, and just go on with the rest of the diseases. So all these things I had learned over a 10-year period, just following first the science of the cell, asking the question, asking the door will open, knocking the door will open, who fashioned these things, and what happened to Mary Magdalene. And now we see the whole thing. And is she back here? I don't know. I suspect that Enki, I know the man who took Enki's trust fund from Vancouver to Beijing in 2000, just before the COVID patents happened, according to Dr. David Martin. And when he got halfway over the Pacific Ocean, he opened up this book. He's a courier, right? He's a professional courier. He goes to the men's bathroom, whatever, has a quick peek. It's in the trillions as the wealth left from San Francisco into Vancouver and then left over to Beijing. And now Beijing is set up to destroy North America, which is the original home of the Black Empire in the Colorado Grand Canyon. There are temples, pyramids to Isis and Osiris in the Grand Canyon. We're not allowed to go there. There are apparently spaceships, single pilot spaceships from the war in Orion are there in caves in the Grand Canyon. The black-headed people came out of the Grand Canyon Empire and appeared in Ireland, which is the outcrop of Atlantis. Gaelic is ancient Sanskrit language that became ancient Swedish, and from Sweden over to Tibet. That's why Swedish names are on Tibet temples. And when the knowledge came back from the east with the wise men into Jerusalem, they thought the ancient wisdom came from Tibet when it really came from Ireland, and before that from Atlantis.
Whew! Whoa! What an integration.
Thank you. One
What
step
an
at a time.
integration.
One
Yeah.
step at a time. But with the woman in the tree, I had them. I had the ancient bridges that were burned by the Vatican, my Vatican. So people know I'm Catholic. I'm not happy with what the popes are doing, but I had then the key to go back to the ancient bridges, back before Fatima, back to Sumer, and the ancient history of where we came from, Planet X.
Wow. What an integration. Thank you so much.
Well, I was led to it. A friend of mine, sorry, my dental hygienist. Here's what happens, folks. Start talking to people. I don't know, if, Alfred, how you did this, but I just talked to everybody. That's why are you doing that? I don't know what they know. I don't know what Alfred knows. I don't know who Alfred knows, but I'm going to find out. So my dental hygienist says this is what happened to her. Blah 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 blah. But my cousin is really good. So I contact the cousin, right? And she says, "Well, I have a woman coming through my bedroom at night, dressed all in gold. Says she's Isis." So what did I say, Alfred? What is she saying? Right? I just want to know what she's saying because she hasn't read my books. My books aren't out yet. And so she says, blah, 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 blah. And it's accurate. The husband threatens to divorce her until he's on a business trip in a hotel. And guess who walks through the hotel room in the middle of the night? And he said, whoa. So it's all connected, but you've got to get up to a non-judgmental thinking. And she told, that was the one who told me, the cousin told me, Glenn, you've got to say, I will follow 3 times. And they will follow, and then they will show you. So on that path, I left from my relationships in Philadelphia, and a girl had my book 4 in Sweden. And she says, well, maybe we should come here and we'll go on a trip to Girona, Spain. And I said, well, who's leading us on this trip? It's going to cost me several thousand. I wasn't exactly flush. And she goes, the Black Madonna herself. And I said, what? There goes 3 grand. The Black Madonna is going to lead you and me to the secrets in Girona, Spain, one of the highest black society, secret societies in the world. We're not there 4 hours. We got there 4 in the morning. We napped and went to breakfast at 8, Alfred. We went to the bottom of the staircase in Girona's ancient cathedral, 1000 AD. And in the steps, she was a stone expert, is the Greek lambda, which is the Greek term for the symbol for the penis. There were 5 penises in the stair, 5 lambdas. I'm a builder in concrete. I could see the stones are making lambdas. Every step up, there's like maybe 60 of them up to this cathedral, all have the lambdas in it. If you're not just walking around, be a tourist, but watching the signs. She knew I wouldn't have picked it up. She says the stairs is a penis. I said top of the stairs is the Virgin Mary. I guarantee you there's no sperm. Okay, we get to the top of the stairs, a cathedral, and there's a outcrop and a woman up there 12 feet above people's heads. They're all walking underneath. And in her left arm is a male infant. It's either Jesus Christ and Virgin Mary, or Alfred, it is Ninma and the first Adam in her left arm. And in her, she says, look, in the right hand in her skirt, there's the male scrotum. It's called the Magdalene Pear of Girona. Google it. I said, zoom in with the cameras. There are 6 fingers there. She's holding up the male penis. The term is Babylon is, I made those atoms with my own hands. That's a Knights Templar statue sitting there in plain sight, and nobody had noticed. So these are the miracles. This is the history of this magical planet. Provided you agree, all I did, I just, left my girlfriend who was going to, she kicked me out for going to see this research trip, like you would go on, right? This research trip in Girona. And then we went on to France, to Rennes-le-Chateau. And we're coming down from Montsegur, from where the Knights Templar secret first was. And birds come to the front of the car. Well, I'm tired. We've climbed this mountain all day. It's 5 o'clock. I want to get a beer. The hotel's that way. My partner says, follow the birds. And off we go into the countryside of France. We're looking for the statue of the girl with the golden hair. It's Eve and Dantina. We pull up to a traffic circle in the countryside of France, near Tarascon. I know that. Middle of nowhere, this tiny little church with the door open at 7 o'clock at night, and we pull up there, the dust flying like a movie. In we go. I go right to the statue of Mary Magdalene. She goes left of the altar and comes out white as anything. Could only grab me by the shirt and pull me to the left side of the altar. There was the statue of the girl with the golden hair. The birds had taken us there. This can happen to anybody. This can happen to if it happened to Alfred in your great career, if it happened to me, right? Just this kid from Toronto, it can happen to anybody.
Oh, yeah. It was down when I lived in the lower Rio Grande Valley, which is where James Audubon went to paint his pictures of the birds. It was the birds that, and we, I was there in my family house, and it abutted on Resaca, which are these tributaries of the Rio Grande. And we had these prehistoric birds. We had birds all over the place. And it was the birds that came and told me to move back to Canada to help transform the world. And that's why I'm back up in Canada.
So how did the birds communicate this to you? This is so critical. How did they communicate? How?
Yeah, it's telepathically. See, because the birds are most connected to the portal at the core of our universe, which is connected to the intelligence of source, comes through the portal at the core of our galaxy, which comes through. And that's what things like HART try to block. You know, and that's what and that comes through here, through the top of our heads.
Yeah. And into the thyroid, through the hypothalamus, that's your gyroscope. But pasteurized dairy, not raw cheese, pasteurized cheese can't be absorbed. It's found between the right and left brain, and the pineal is calcified and also affected by fluoride. Now, I don't think, Alfred, you know that before the Tower of Babel scrambling the languages, the original language of this planet was the bird language.
Interesting.
And you and I, who are strangers, have experienced the bird language in the Languedoc of France, and you experienced at your home in the United States.
Yeah.
So now you go back to Canada. Vancouver, Toronto is where the woman and tree appears. It's in the back of all my books. I wrote 5 books. It's on the back page. The picture's there. It's in color. And you can see for yourself the woman and the tree. In Toronto, Canada is the richest country in the world, and we are going to lead the world to peace and end and feed the world.
Yeah.
That's our destiny.
Good.
Yay! Any more? I think it's enough for now.
Yeah, that is wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah, so what I'll do is I will take this and I'll do a transcript. I'll do a run through, and then when I have something of a decent transcript, I will send it to you so that you and your leisure you can go through and correct it so that it's fit to print.
Great, wonderful, great. I look forward to it.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
It's been wonderful getting to know you. I knew you were who you were from reading your background. I'm still, it's jaw. What this Bishop Gator says in New York, he's a great historian. He goes, Glenn, how's your jaw insurance? And your background is worthy of jaw dropping insurance. So I'll take the premium tomorrow. Okay. Thank you,
Okay.
Alfred.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Talk soon. Bye bye.